The stars shimmered beyond the glass dome of the space station Arcadia Prime, where hundreds of alien races gathered for trade, politics, and, unfortunately, entertainment. Among the glitter and noise, one human walked quietly through the metallic corridors. His name was Eli Mercer, a former combat engineer turned mechanic. He preferred machines to people, silence to applause, and peace to power. Eli had seen too much of the galaxy's cruelty. To him, this station wasn't a beacon of progress. It was a stage where the rich watched the poor dance for survival. The aliens called humans the newcomers, still fragile, still emotional, still primitive. But that was fine for Eli. He didn't need their respect. He just needed his tools and his workshop. That changed the day the gift arrived. It was supposed to be part of a celebration. The Vorn Dominion, one of the most powerful alien clans on the station, had decided to host a grand event to show off their wealth and influence. And as a gesture of goodwill, they presented a strange object to Eli's employer, a living being, encased in a transparent pod. The being inside was small and fragile, her skin pale silver with faint blue lines that pulsed under the surface like dim lights. Her body was thin, almost weightless, and her eyes were closed. Her breathing was weak, uneven, like a candle about to go out. When the Vorn delivered the pod, they laughed. "This one's broken," one of them said, with a deep rumbling voice. "She was taken from an old ship crash. We thought it would amuse your human staff. Maybe fix her, maybe display her. She doesn't feel pain anymore." Eli froze. He hated the way they said it, like she was a toy, a thing. The aliens left the pod in the corner of the workshop and left. Everyone else ignored it, but Eli couldn't. The sight of the small figure haunted him. Her chest rose and fell weakly under the glass. Her hair, if it could be called that, was made of thin glowing strands that dimmed with every breath. Eli approached the pod, pressing a hand to the glass. It was cold. He saw the faint condensation of her breath fogging the inside. "She's alive," he whispered. The station's medics refused to help. They said her species, identified as Seraphine Class Theta, was biologically incompatible with human or standard medical equipment. Not worth the effort, they said. But Eli couldn't let it go. Not this time. That night, when everyone had left, he stayed behind in the workshop. He opened the pod manually, despite the warnings. A faint hiss filled the air, and for a second he feared he had killed her. But then her fingers twitched. Slowly, carefully, he lifted her out. She was lighter than he expected, barely weighing more than a toolkit. Her skin was soft, faintly warm now, as if responding to contact. He placed her on the examination table, turning on every scanner and tool he could use. The readings were strange. Her body used a form of energy that moved like light through transparent veins. Where humans had blood, she had luminescence. "She's running out of power?" Eli muttered to himself, scanning again. "No, not power. Life force," he frowned. The Vorn had said she was broken, but it wasn't mechanical. It was biological. Maybe even spiritual. Then her eyes opened. Two large, glowing orbs, pale blue and full of confusion, looked straight at him. For a moment, Eli forgot to breathe. She didn't speak, but her expression was full of fear. Hey, he said gently, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." Her lips parted and a faint sound escaped, like the echo of a melody underwater. He didn't understand the words, but the tone was soft, curious, and tired. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I don't understand you either." For the next few hours, Eli worked carefully. He attached stabilizers to her wrist to monitor energy flow and used small light generators to replace whatever source her body was missing. It was all guesswork, but he had a feeling that her kind survived on light, pure energy, not food or oxygen. By morning, her breathing was steadier, but Eli knew trouble was coming. The Vorn didn't give gifts, they tested people. If they found out he had opened the pod, or worse, that the alien girl was recovering, they would take her back, or destroy her. Still, Eli couldn't stop. He brought her water, even though she didn't drink. He tried talking to her, pointing to objects and naming them. "Light," he'd say, holding a lamp. "Tool, table, Eli." She began mimicking sounds, her voice like chimes. One night she pointed to him and whispered faintly, "Eat, Lee." That simple word hit him harder than any medal or praise he'd ever received. Days passed. She grew stronger. Though her body remained fragile, she still flinched at loud sounds and bright lights. Sometimes when the engines of passing ships thundered through the hangar, she'd curl up and cover her head, trembling. Eli didn't need to ask what had happened to her. He had seen enough war to recognize trauma. One night, while checking her energy monitors, he asked softly, "What did they do to you?" She didn't answer, but tears glowing faintly blue slid down her cheeks. That was when he made the decision. He would not let her be used again. Not for amusement, not for profit, not for anyone's entertainment, but saving her meant breaking laws. The Vorn controlled the station's security. Every pod, every alien life form was registered under their domain. Taking her away, or even keeping her hidden, would make him an outlaw. Still, when he looked at her sleeping form, the decision was already made. "Guess we're both broken," he murmured. "But maybe we can fix each other." He spent the next week preparing. He modified his repair shuttle, the Tessera, to create an energy field that mimicked the light she needed to survive. He forged access codes, rerouted security signals, and deleted camera footage from the workshop. Every step brought him closer to danger. But he didn't care. The girl, he had started calling her Leora, meaning light in an old Earth dialect, was beginning to trust him. She followed him around the workshop, curious about every tool and gadget. Her steps were slow but graceful, like she was learning to walk again after years in darkness. One evening, while he worked under the shuttle's engine, she sat nearby, humming a soft tune. The sound filled the room, calm and soothing. For the first time in years, Eli felt at peace. Then the alarm blared. Harsh red lights flooded the hangar. The security drones had detected unauthorized energy readings, the kind Leora emitted. "Found us already," Eli muttered. He looked up at her. She was trembling, eyes wide with fear. He grabbed her hand gently. "Leora, we need to go now." Her fingers tightened around his. She didn't understand the words, but she understood fear. They ran toward the shuttle. Drones swarmed through the hangar doors, their metallic voices echoing through the chamber. Eli slammed the controls, powering the engines. The floor rumbled. The air shimmered, and as the Tessera lifted off the ground, Eli caught a glimpse of the Vorn overseer entering the hangar, pointing directly at them. "Human," the alien roared. "You will regret this." Eli didn't look back. The shuttle roared through the hangar gates and into the black sea of stars. He exhaled shakily, glancing at Leora, who sat beside him, her light pulsing brighter than before. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I'm not giving up on you." Outside, the stars stretched into lines as the Tessera entered hyperspace, and the chase for humanity's compassion had just begun. The Tessera drifted through deep space, away from the bright rings of Arcadia Prime. Inside the small shuttle, the lights flickered gently, reflecting off metallic walls. The hum of the engine was steady, a soft heartbeat in the silence of the void. Eli Mercer sat in the pilot's seat, eyes focused on the navigation screen. His hands moved quickly across the controls, setting a random course far from the main trade routes. He knew the Vorn would chase him. They never forgot an insult, especially not one that made them look weak in front of others. But at that moment, he wasn't thinking about danger. His eyes kept moving to the co-pilot seat beside him. Leora sat there, wrapped in one of his old flight jackets. The sleeves were far too long for her, and the fabric looked heavy against her small frame, but she seemed to like it. Her silver skin glowed softly in the dim light, and her eyes followed the endless stars outside the window with quiet wonder. Eli smiled faintly. "You like it out there, huh?" She turned to look at him, tilting her head curiously. He pointed to the stars. "Out there, stars, beautiful." Leora blinked, then slowly repeated the word. "Beautiful." Her voice was soft and musical. Every time she spoke, it felt like the universe itself paused to listen. "Yeah," Eli said quietly. "That's right. The first few days in space were calm but difficult." Leora's condition was still unstable. Without the artificial light field in the ship, her body began to weaken again. Eli worked long hours, modifying the engine's core to release small bursts of radiant energy that matched her wavelength. It wasn't perfect, but it helped her survive. He slept little. Every few hours, he checked her readings on the monitor. Energy flow, pulse, temperature. Her biology still didn't make sense to him, but he was learning. One night, while the Tessera drifted through a quiet nebula, Leora wandered close to him. She watched as he adjusted a glowing cable and carefully tightened a bolt. "Lee," she said softly. He looked up, surprised. Yeah? She pointed to the cable. You fix? Eli smiled. Yeah, I fix. It's what I do. She thought for a moment, then smiled back. A small, uncertain smile that made her face glow brighter. Me? That question hit him like a weight. He looked at her for a long time before answering. I'm trying, Leora, I really am. By the 5th day, the Tessera's food supplies were running low and the ship needed fuel. They couldn't risk returning to any station run by the Vorn or their allies. So Eli decided to head toward the border zones, uncharted territories where smugglers, miners and wanderers survived off trade and luck. It was a dangerous choice, but it was their only one. The Tessera entered a debris field, an old battleground filled with the wrecks of ships destroyed years ago. The navigation sensors beeped constantly, warning of metallic fragments. Leora sat beside him, holding a small device he had made for her, a glowing sphere that stored light energy. She liked it, often keeping it close to her chest like it was a precious treasure. Eli watched her reflection in the glass. Careful. Some of those pieces could be radioactive. She looked confused, not understanding the word. He chuckled softly. Never mind. Just stay close. As they moved deeper into the field, the radar picked up something strange, a faint power signal. It wasn't alien. It was human. Eli frowned. A distress beacon? He adjusted the scanners. The signal was weak but repeating, a standard SOS code used by Earth fleets decades ago. What's a human ship doing all the way out here? He muttered. He turned to Leora. We're making a stop. The wreck was small, a research vessel half buried in floating debris. Its hull was torn open and one engine had exploded, but the distress light still blinked weakly. Eli guided the Tessera close and locked the airlock. Stay here, Leora, I'll be right back. But Leora shook her head. No, go, she pointed to herself. Help. He hesitated, then nodded. All right, but stay close. They stepped into the broken ship. The air was cold and heavy with dust. Floating tools drifted past them as they moved through the narrow corridors. Inside the control room, they found what remained of the crew, empty suits, silent terminals, and one still active console. Eli approached it and began scanning the logs. Looks like this ship was studying a nearby star cluster. Radiation storm hit them before they could escape. Suddenly, Leora gasped. Her glowing sphere flickered, reacting to something. She pointed toward a shattered chamber at the far end of the room. Eli followed her gaze. Inside, a containment pod similar to the one she had been trapped in lay cracked open. His breath caught. You weren't the only one. Leora stepped forward, trembling. She touched the side of the broken pod and faint memories flickered across her face. Sadness, fear, and recognition. Her eyes glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. Eli gently placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry. Whoever was in there, they didn't make it. She looked up at him, tears shining like small blue lights. Alone, she whispered. Eli swallowed hard. Not anymore. He downloaded what data he could and helped her back to the Tessera. Before leaving, he placed a small beacon near the wreck, a silent promise that someone would remember those who had fallen there. When they were back in space, Leora sat quietly, her light dimmer than before. Eli tried to talk, but she only stared at the stars. Finally, he turned off the controls and sat beside her. You know, he said softly, humans used to believe that every person has a light inside them, something that doesn't die, even when the body does. Maybe your people believe that too. She looked at him with curious eyes. He smiled sadly. Maybe your friend's light is still out there. Maybe that's what we see when we look at the stars. Leora blinked slowly, then looked out the window again. After a moment, her hand reached for his. Her touch was gentle but filled with warmth. Light, she whispered. Stay, Eli nodded. Always. Their peace didn't last long. 2 days later, while crossing an empty sector, the Tessera's scanners detected multiple ships behind them, fast, heavily armed and flying under Vorn signals. Eli's heart sank. They found us. He quickly changed course, diving into an asteroid field. The ship rattled violently as rocks scraped against the hull. Leora held on tightly, her eyes wide with fear. Hold steady, he shouted, steering between spinning stones. The Vorn ships followed, firing tracking pulses that painted bright trails across the dark. Eli activated the defensive field, a small energy cloak he had built for emergencies. The ship shimmered and vanished from sensors. Come on, he muttered. The Vorn ship slowed, scanning the field. For a few tense minutes, the Tessera floated silently between massive asteroids. Leora didn't move, barely breathing. Then, slowly, the enemy ships turned away and left. Eli finally exhaled. We're safe. For now. Leora touched his arm gently. You save. He laughed weakly. Yeah, but I can't do that forever. Later, while he repaired the damage, Leora approached him holding her glowing sphere. She placed it on the table and pointed to the light inside. Share, she said simply. He looked confused. Share? She touched her chest, then pointed to him. Light, you, me. Eli smiled faintly. You want to share your light with me? She nodded. He hesitated, unsure what she meant, but when she reached out her hand, he placed his hand in hers. A gentle warmth spread through his skin, soft, bright, and calm. For a moment, the world around them faded, replaced by a vision of colors and sound. He saw flashes of her memories, her people flying among glowing cities, singing through the air, connected by threads of energy and emotion. Then he saw the darkness, the crash, the pain, the loneliness. When the vision faded, he realized she had shared a part of her past with him. He whispered, You wanted me to understand? She nodded softly. Now, not alone. For the first time since leaving Arcadia Prime, Eli felt something deep inside him stir, a spark of hope. Humanity had always been seen as rough, emotional, and reckless, but maybe in moments like this that emotion was their strength. He smiled gently. We'll find your home, Leora, I promise. Outside, the stars shimmered brighter as if listening to his words, and far behind them, the Vorn fleet changed direction again, now tracking the trail of light left behind by a fragile alien girl and the stubborn human who refused to let her fade. The Tessera glided through the dark, silent sea of space. It had been almost 3 weeks since Eli and Leora escaped from Arcadia Prime. The stars outside looked calm, but Eli knew danger followed them like a shadow. Every day, he worked to keep the ship alive, fixing engines, checking the power core, and scanning for signs of pursuit. Every night he looked at the small, glowing sphere on the control panel, the one that carried a piece of Leora's energy, and reminded himself why he couldn't give up. Leora had changed since the day he found her. She could now speak simple words, though her voice still carried a soft, melodic tone. She liked to watch Eli work, often sitting cross-legged on the floor with her glowing hair spreading around her like threads of silver light. Eli, she said one morning, pointing at the window. Where go? Eli smiled. We're heading to the Vega Belt. I heard there's an old research base there, abandoned but maybe still running. If we're lucky, it might have data about your kind. Leora blinked slowly. My home? Maybe, Eli said. We'll find out, she smiled faintly. I trust. Her words were simple, but they filled the room with warmth. The Vega Belt was a dangerous place, a cluster of icy asteroids orbiting a dying blue star. Ships rarely came here. The gravity fields twisted sensors and the cold could freeze entire engines. But to Eli, that was perfect. The Vorn wouldn't follow him this far. As they entered the region, the ship's alarms beeped. Static filled the screen. Radiation fields ahead, Eli muttered, adjusting the controls. We'll have to go slow. Leora leaned forward, watching the glowing mist outside. The dying star painted the belt in shades of blue and white. The sight was beautiful, almost peaceful. Eli smiled. You like it? She nodded, eyes wide. Beautiful. But sad. Yeah, he agreed softly. Sad can be beautiful too. Hours later, the Tessera found the research base, a floating structure half covered in frost, its solar panels cracked but still catching faint light. Eli scanned it twice before approaching. No life signs, he said, but it's still got minimal power. They docked the ship and stepped into the station. The corridors were cold and silent. Frost covered the walls like white paint. Old Earth symbols still decorated the doors. Lab 03, Archive, La Cryo Bay. Leora's light reflected off the icy floor, making the place look alive again. Stay close, Eli said gently. She nodded and followed him into the archive chamber. Inside, old computers and holographic projectors stood covered in dust. Eli brushed one clean and connected his portable scanner. Let's see if this thing still works, he muttered. After a few sparks, the screen lit up with faint blue text. A list of research topics appeared: xenobiology, energy resonance, contact with unknown life forms. Eli scrolled through the files until one caught his eye. Project Seraphine, Life Forms of Light. His heart raced. Leora, he whispered. That's you. Leora tilted her head, confused. He opened the file. A holographic projection appeared above the console, an image of glowing humanoid beings flying through clouds of light, their energy connecting in patterns of blue and gold. The voice of an old scientist echoed from the speaker. The Seraphine are energy-based life forms found near collapsing stars. Their biology is built from light resonance, allowing them to convert radiation into life force. Communication occurs through harmonic frequencies, essentially music. They appear peaceful and empathic, capable of emotional projection. Leora reached out to the hologram, tears forming in her eyes. My people, she whispered. Eli watched her silently, feeling the weight of her loneliness. We'll find where they are now, he said. But as he scrolled through the files, his heart sank. The last entry read, Contact lost with Seraphine colony after supernova event. Survivors unknown. Leora's light dimmed. Her shoulders trembled. Gone? Eli didn't know what to say. He knelt beside her, placing a hand on her arm. Maybe not gone, he said softly. Just missing. Maybe they're out there somewhere waiting. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes reflecting hope and sadness at once. We find? He nodded. We'll find. They spent hours downloading data and repairing what they could. The old base also had a small greenhouse where frozen plants still clung to life. Eli managed to restart its heaters and oxygen system, giving them a place to rest for the night. Leora wandered through the small garden, touching the leaves as they thawed. When she placed her hand near one of the wilted stems, her light pulsed softly, and the plant began to revive, its color returning. Eli's eyes widened. You can do that? Leora smiled faintly. Light gives life. He watched her quietly. There was something special about her. Not just her energy, but her spirit. Humanity had always believed that compassion was strength. Leora was living proof of it. Later that night, Eli sat by the control panel reviewing maps of nearby star systems. Leora sat beside him, humming softly. Her song filled the room like sunlight. He turned to her. That song, is it from your people? She nodded. Song of return we sing. To find each other. Eli smiled. Then keep singing. Maybe they'll hear you. The next morning he woke to the sound of alarms. The sensors flashed red, multiple ships approaching fast. He rushed to the window. The cold void outside lit up with distant engines. The Vorn, he whispered. They found us again. Leora stood behind him, eyes full of fear. They tracked the energy from your song, Eli realized bitterly. They must have picked up your light signature. He turned to her quickly. We need to leave. But before they could reach the tessera, the station shook violently. A blast hit the docking bay, sending metal and sparks flying. The floor trembled under their feet. Eli grabbed Leora's hand. This way! They ran down the frozen corridor as another explosion tore through the walls. Alarms blared. The lights flickered. When they reached the lower level, Eli activated an emergency escape pod. Get in! Leora hesitated. You? I'll be right behind you, he said, forcing a smile. Go. She shook her head and grabbed his arm. Together, Eli sighed. All right, together. They climbed in, and with a pull of the lever, the pod launched away from the station. Behind them, the base exploded into a cloud of blue light and debris. The pod tumbled through the void, spinning before stabilizing. Leora's glowing sphere rolled across the floor, pulsing weakly. Eli looked at the navigation panel. We're off course. No control. Leora placed her hand on the sphere, and her light spread through the pod's systems. Slowly, the controls flickered back to life. Eli blinked in awe. You're powering it? She nodded, eyes glowing brighter. Together, he smiled. Yeah, together. Hours later, they drifted near a small moon orbiting a quiet red star. The surface below shimmered faintly like crystal dust. Eli managed to guide the pod down safely, landing near a ridge. When they stepped outside, the air was thin but breathable. The sky glowed faint orange, and the ground sparkled under their feet. Leora looked around in wonder. Beautiful, Eli chuckled. You always say that, she smiled softly. Because it is. They set up a small shelter using the pod's remains. The environment was calm, no signals, no threats. For the first time in weeks, they could breathe. That night, as they sat beside a small light generator, Eli looked at the stars. You know, Leora, if your people are still out there, they'll see your light someday. And if not, maybe humanity will. She tilted her head. Humanity? He nodded. My people. We're messy. We fight, we argue, we make mistakes. But sometimes we also do the right thing. We care, even when it's hard. She smiled faintly. You care, Eli chuckled. Yeah, guess I do. He looked at her glowing form and added softly, You taught me that caring isn't weakness. It's what makes us human. Leora looked at him for a long time, then placed her hand over his. Her light spread, surrounding them both in a soft blue glow. Then maybe, human and seraphine. Not so different, she said gently. Eli nodded, his voice quiet. Maybe not. Far above the moon's surface, hidden in the shadow of a drifting asteroid, a Vorn scout ship floated silently. Its sensors blinked as it tracked the faint glow below. Inside, the commander watched the readings and grinned coldly. The human is still alive, he said. And the creature with him. He turned to his crew. Send word to the fleet. We've found them. Down below, unaware of the coming danger, Eli and Leora looked toward the horizon, where the faint light of dawn began to rise. For that moment, they felt safe. They didn't know the storm that was coming, but humanity's light, Eli's heart, was ready to face it. The dawn on the red-hued moon was quiet, almost serene. Eli Mercer sat beside Leora, the soft hum of the shelter generator filling the silence. They had survived countless dangers, Arcadia Prime, the Vorn, and the cold loneliness of space. But this small moment of calm felt almost unreal. Leora's light pulsed steadily now, stronger than ever. Her healing had been slow but steady, thanks to Eli's constant care in the energy field of the shelter. She had even learned to manipulate her light in small ways, coaxing it into shapes and patterns that danced across the floor. You're getting stronger, Eli said softly, watching her create shimmering waves that reflected in the frost. She looked up at him, eyes glowing. I feel better, safe, Eli nodded. And you are. I promise. No one can hurt you here, not while I'm around. But peace in space rarely lasted long. Far above the moon, hidden in the shadow of a massive asteroid, the Vorn fleet gathered. Their ships gleamed like cold steel under the light of the dying star. The commander, a towering alien with deep purple armor and piercing eyes, studied the readings from the moon below. They found a sanctuary, he said, voice echoing in the ship. But the girl's light is still strong. We cannot let them escape again. Prepare the fleet. Move in carefully. This human is clever, but no human can outrun us forever. Back on the moon, Eli sensed the subtle change in the air. Something felt wrong. An energy signature approaching. He checked the monitors. Several blips appeared, small but fast-moving. Leora, he said softly, pulling her close. We might have company. Stay calm, okay? She nodded, her small hand gripping his. Together, she whispered. Eli smiled faintly. Always. The Vorn ships descended slowly, using stealth technology to remain partially invisible. They didn't expect resistance. Humans rarely fought back when outnumbered. But Eli had an idea. He had spent the last few days building a protective shield around their shelter, using a combination of old base generators and Leora's light energy. The process had been painstaking, requiring careful synchronization between technology and her innate power. Now, he activated it. A soft dome of blue energy enveloped the shelter, pulsating with Leora's energy. Outside, the Vorn sensors picked up unusual readings, energy waves stronger than anything they had encountered before. What is that? One of the crew asked nervously. It's impossible, the commander growled. Human using her power? Inside the dome, Leora's hands glowed as she concentrated. Eli guided her gently, helping her focus her energy in harmony with the generators. The shield shimmered, bright enough to reflect the first light of the star. The Vorn fleet fired. Energy beams struck the dome but bounced off harmlessly. Sparks danced along the surface and small concussive blasts shook the ground, but the shield held firm. Eli shouted over the vibrations, Keep going, Leora. Don't let them break it. She strained, her small body glowing brighter than ever. Her voice hummed a harmonic frequency. a song of strength and protection. The dome responded, growing stronger with each note. Feeding off her light for a moment, the two of them, human and alien, became one force, a single, unstoppable beacon of hope. The Vorn commander's eyes widened. Impossible. It's absorbing our attacks. Eli's heart pounded, but he didn't look away. He held Leora's hand and whispered, "We can do this. We'll protect each other." She nodded, and together they pushed back with light and energy, deflecting every assault the Vorn could send. Hours passed, and the Vorn fleet began to retreat. Their commander realized that brute force alone could not overcome this shield. "Fall back," he ordered. "We will not capture the girl today." As the ships disappeared into the darkness, Eli sank to the ground, exhausted but relieved. Leora sat beside him, her glowing form dimming slightly as she rested. "You did it," Eli said softly, brushing a strand of glowing hair from her face. "We did it." She smiled faintly. "Together," he nodded. "Together." For the next few days, Eli and Leora repaired the shelter and the pod. He used the time to teach her more about humans, stories, small inventions, the beauty of music and art. Leora responded by showing him ways to focus her light into tools, small floating orbs that could illuminate or repair devices. They grew closer, not just as friends or allies, but as two beings learning from each other, teaching each other and protecting each other. One night, as they sat under the glow of a tiny artificial sun Eli had built in the greenhouse, Leora spoke. "Eli." "Home?" she asked quietly. He thought about it. Her true home, the Seraphine world, was unknown, possibly lost. But he realized something important. Your home can be wherever you feel safe. Wherever you are happy. If you want, that can be here with me. She looked at him, her eyes full of hope and tears. Slowly, she reached out, touching his hand. "Stay here?" Eli smiled softly. "I will, as long as you want me to." Her glow brightened slightly, a sign of trust and comfort. Weeks passed. Eli and Leora explored nearby star systems, looking for signs of her people. They found old ruins, abandoned stations, and faint traces of Seraphine signals, but nothing definitive. Each discovery was small, a tiny hope that kept them moving forward. During one quiet night on a small asteroid, Leora's energy pulsed unusually. Eli checked the readings and noticed a faint harmonic resonance in the distance. "Someone, or something," he said, eyes wide. "Could be Seraphine. Could be your people." Leora's glow increased. "Go?" "Yes," Eli said. "We'll see, finally." They navigated carefully, avoiding patrols and radiation zones. The resonance grew stronger, like a gentle song carried across the void. Leora's light pulsed in response, almost as if calling back to the source, and then, through the darkness, they saw it, a ship unlike any human or alien design, glowing with radiant energy, moving with grace and purpose. Leora gasped. "Home?" Eli nodded. "I think so." The Seraphine ship descended slowly, sensing them. A doorway opened and figures stepped out, tall, slender beings of light, their forms shimmering in the starlight. They regarded Leora and Eli with cautious curiosity. Eli raised his hand slowly. "I helped her," he said simply. "I didn't want anyone to hurt her." The Seraphine looked at him, silent. Then Leora stepped forward, her glow brightening. She sang, a soft harmonic melody that reached their ears in ways words could not. The Seraphine's forms responded, glowing brighter. They reached out to Leora and she embraced them, her light connecting with theirs. Eli watched silently, a mixture of awe and pride swelling inside him. Humanity, flawed and fragile as it was, had shown compassion, courage, and determination. It had saved a life and, in doing so, had earned the trust of another world. One of the Seraphine turned to Eli, its voice resonating in harmonic tones that his human ears could barely comprehend. Yet he understood the meaning clearly. "You are welcome here. Your heart is strong." Eli smiled, a quiet, humble smile. "Thank you." Leora turned to him, her glowing eyes shining. "Eli, home," he nodded. "Yes, maybe home isn't just a place. Maybe it's where you are safe, where you're loved, and I think we found that." She reached out her hand and he took it. Together they stepped toward the Seraphine ship, toward a future neither of them could have imagined when their journey began. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, sparkling with possibilities. The Vorn fleet was far behind, powerless and irrelevant. Humanity's courage, compassion, and determination had shone brighter than any weapon or fleet. For Eli Mercer and Leora, the broken girl given as a toy had become a beacon of hope. And the galaxy had learned something simple yet profound. Humanity, in its heart, could light up even the darkest corners of the universe.